Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever asked yourself the following question, like, how are you going to build a long legacy successfully through long distance real estate investing? Then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're definitely going to want to listen to until the very last word. And I promise that, because you know what? Today's guest has a passion for serving others, giving back, as well as influencing positive change in communities. He's also been a naval officer with over 19 years of experience in leading diverse teams to successful outcomes. Since finding real estate, he has determined to provide financial education to both young people as well as adults. He is the managing partner of Long Brother LLC and the founder of A Long Legacy. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Marcus Long. Marcus, welcome to the conversation, man.
Thanks, Billy. I'm excited to be here and look forward to providing some value to your listeners today.
Man, you know what? You are I love your story. I love your energy and just the focus that you have on service and being able to serve others. And I guess one of the things that I want to before we even get started, I would like to thank you for your service in terms of your military service. And thank you very much before we even get started for your dedication and for your service.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And so look, Marcus, the thing is, like, there's a lot of things that we have in common, which I think is great. And since I've had a chance to meet you and learn from you and grow as a result, I know that today's conversation, the entire Going Long family is going to love it. And you know that I like to ask everybody the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the middle. Yeah, 2 plus 3 is 5. And then, you know what, in the middle, you and I are just going to get to know you a lot more so that the Going Long family can get to know you, and also with the goal of being able to reach out and learn more from you so that you can continue to serve other people. So with that, I want to get into the first question, and that is, where exactly in the world are you located?
Yeah, so I'm actually in a very small village called Shipton Olaf. It's on the outskirts of Cheltenham, England, about 2 hours west of London.
Wow, about 2 hours west of London, UK. Fantastic. So that's really cool. So we've got 2 people on this side of the pond for another conversation. I like that a lot. There's a lot that we have to share and a lot that you have to share about your long distance journey. And the other thing is, love to get things started out here positively as well. So Marcus, what's the most positive thing that has happened to you in the last 24 hours?
You know, Billy, I honestly have to say it was waking up this morning. And fortunately for me, that's happened every day for almost 39 years. But on a serious note, you know, I mean, I think we're never promised another day here to wake up and appreciate the miracle that we've been given to make memories with our kids and our families and to impact other lives. And so I'm just very grateful every day that, you know, I have the opportunity to wake up and a chance to do that again.
You know, and it's fantastic. And even though it was probably a bit tongue in cheek when you said it, I mean, it is one of the things even Les Brown says every morning that you wake up and there's not a white chalk around your body, it's another positive day. And sometimes we look so far to try to find the positivity. And the fact of the matter is, every single day that we wake up, we're given an opportunity to go out and make the best of the 24 hours that we're given. So thank you for helping us to reflect on that, because it is something that is super important, super important. And you know what? The other thing, Marcus, I tried to kind of tell your story at a really, really high level, whatever you can do in the first, I guess, 15 seconds of an intro. But you know what? I'm sure that the entire Going Long family would love to know more about your story. They would love to hear it from you. And you know what? Also, if you could highlight maybe a couple of the things or the important decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey, would be absolutely fantastic. And then you and I can take the conversation from there.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm first and foremost a husband, father of a 7 and a 3-year-old. As you mentioned, I'm a naval officer. I literally just went over my 20-year mark. So I am on the trajectory to make my transition. And, as we'll come to find out in this conversation, a real estate investor. And as you mentioned, I'm very passionate about, giving back to others and making a positive impact in others' lives. And so while my real estate journey, probably about 17 years long at this point in time, and started out fairly slow, not very focused, not very intentional. It has kind of really picked up over the past few years. And initially it was kind of this like long-term wealth building thing. I didn't really know how to analyze real estate and stuff. I was going to collect it, so to speak. And eventually I got to the point where I found out, hey, this is the medium that I can use to create options for my family as I transition from the military, in order to not necessarily walk into a W-2 if I don't want to, to create that kind of freedom, but really just to make the choice. And as I started to focus and be more intentional on real estate, it really opened my eyes to different strategies and really the impact that I could have through real estate. So I've always loved to give back. I've always been passionate about that. And in real estate, there's so many ways, from the impact we can have with our residents in the communities that we invest in, that we can have an impact on our own families to provide those options, to create options for our children and their children longer term. And then also like whether it's the impact we can also have with the profits that we make, giving to charities, or how we decide to use that time for nonprofits or other things. And so there's just so many ways you can have that impact in different vectors. And so that's kind of been a real influencer in the direction that I have gone over the past couple of years, despite the 17-year journey.
So you've got a 17-year journey that you've talked about, and a couple of things that you have mentioned, right, just in the conversation after 17 years, but it seems like something changed. You talked about words like focus, intentionality, and also impact. Why are these three words, like when did these three words really start to come about in your life as it relates to real estate investing, number one? And since these three words have really entered into your thought process, what has happened?
Yeah. So as they relate to real estate investing, so my first real estate investment was in 2004. And, I bought a 3-bedroom, 2-condo place that I personally lived in at the time. I did some house hacking and things like that. And as I left there, I moved to Hawaii. And, military wise, sometimes we get told this strategy of, just buy a place in everywhere that you go, and over time, and that's not always the best strategy necessarily. So as I went to Hawaii and into an expensive market and stuff, I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the best time to keep like collecting them. And so over the first 10 years or so, it was a very opportunistic, when something came up. I wasn't really out looking to buy real estate. I wasn't analyzing properties and things like that on a regular basis. Again, I'd read some financial books and things. And for me, it was more just like I was buying real estate to build up this equity over time, so that by the time I retired or something, I would have a little bit more net worth and things like that. I wasn't really thinking about like the cash flow aspect and, all the tax benefits or making forced depreciation or any of that kind of stuff. And, it's kind of, in that about 2016 timeframe, I guess, is when I kind of started partnering with my brothers a little bit. And that was still a little bit on the same kind of mentality. We just kind of talked about it on a grander scale, like, hey, let's do this together for our families and stuff, and kind of build some of this wealth and to create some options. And even in that, we did have, kind of impact and things like that on our minds. Like if you look at some of the investments we made, one of them is a multi-use building. It was an old restaurant, had been vacant for a couple of years, a couple apartments on top. And we knew of a business in town that had a need for that kind of building. They were not necessarily interested in going out and buying it. So we kind of worked with them and partnered with them, and we went and acquired the building. And now they've been in there since we bought it, and so it gave them a place to operate. It's a thriving business in our hometown, a small rural community and stuff. And she's doing great with the business, and it's a great thing for the town. So we we as a family, had that hope and intention of having impact. And then, if you take it even another step further, for me personally, as I got closer to the end of my military career, I wanted to scale a little bit larger than what we were doing together as a family, because I had, this need to replace my income on a shorter timeline than some of my brothers. And about the time, I really started digging into some of that shortly before moving over here to England. And about the time I moved over to England, I joined a couple masterminds, more for the social stuff, because I'd started going to a couple meetups. I liked it. And then I come over here and I was like, well, there's not all these in-person meetups about US real estate. And so I joined a mastermind shortly after that. And that's when I really got exposed to these different strategies, real estate strategies, and went beyond kind of the single family and things like that. And part of it was seeing what other investors were doing, and how they were impacting their residents, how they were taking part of their profits and donating to causes that they believed in, and just the people I had surrounded myself with. And I was like, man, this is absolutely amazing to see that, because I enjoy real estate. It helps provide that optionality that I'm looking for, and I can use it to have an impact, and it's a tangible thing that I can use to teach my children and stuff like that as well. And so it just all started coming together in the past couple of years. It's been a really significant focus, and I've been a lot more intentional about it.
Okay. And so when you become more focused, you become more intentional, and you actually when you become more focused and intentional, the impact then starts to happen. And so you started surrounding yourself with other people that were into similar things, masterminds you mentioned before. Hey, Marcus, how long have you actually been living in the UK?
I'll hit the 2-year mark in about next week, actually.
Okay. So
early July at the time of this recording.
Okay, cool. So 2 years, early July. And then so were you actually doing the masterminds and things while you were in the UK, or did that start before you actually arrived to the UK?
Yeah, it started about 3 months after I arrived in the UK. And just to give you a little bit of sense of kind of the scale and stuff from a real estate investing perspective, I think prior to moving to the UK, I probably had somewhere around 12 like single family and multi-use properties, right? And so currently I have about 15, buy and hold type properties. I have invested as a limited partner in 278 units since moving over here. In fact, most of that was in the last 18 months. I've been a private lender on 8 or 10 projects in the past 15, 16 months. And we're getting ready to close, as a general partner on 100 units on apartment syndication and stuff. So if you look at the 17 years, you can see all that in the last 2, all since I moved over to the UK.
Right. So and I guess this is just a way to kind of give people perspective, right? So 17 years you were kind of there. It was something that you really wanted to have an equity build up. You talked to your brothers and sisters, to your brothers about, and that equated to 12 different properties. And then since then, there's 15 buy and hold properties as well as limited partners. So you found about passive investing, which I definitely want us to dive into a bit more. You acted as a private lender as well. So that's something that's really interesting. And I would like for you to talk to us about that. And then as a general partner, meaning that you're taking on the responsibility for syndicating capital, bringing people together with common goals, dreams, interest, and bringing their capital together to go out and have a particular project. And all of those things, aside from the 12 doors originally, since you've been living in the UK for the last 12 years.
For the last 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. So
exactly
it's interesting what happens with focus and intentionality, right?
That's exactly right.
You all should see the smile that he has on his face. So if you're not watching the video version, yeah, definitely come check out the video version of what we're talking about. So one of the things I'm always interested in this, right? Because, and as you know, Mr. Long, we here at the Going Long podcast, we really love long distance investing, and you can look at that in a number of different ways. But one of the things that when I started reading books, when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I started reading a bunch of other books that were investing books, and this was probably 8, 10, 12 years ago. Although it didn't say it, my understanding was like you should rent properties that you can actually drive by and see. And as you can be a landlord and you can make sure that all of the things that you're doing, you have more control and you can see it. And that's okay. That's one philosophy. I happen to believe that you can live wherever you want in the world. There are multiple strategies, as you've talked about it before as well, in terms of being able to get to whatever the benefit that you're looking for. Equity buildup. It could be tax benefits. It could be cash flow. It could be some type of appreciation, things that you talked about. But I realize that those of us that do that are in the minority. And so you've made a very intentional, focused path to do that while you're living in the UK. And it seems that your results so far are speaking for themselves. But the question that I always love to ask everyone here is, why in the world would you go against conventional wisdom and invest actively or passively beyond your backyard?
Well, I think for me, other than my very first investment that I lived in, and then, I left it. So I immediately in the military moved around. And so if I was going to keep that, I was automatically long distance right there. And when I did start buying more properties, most of them were in the vicinity of my hometown, right? Which, like I said, is a small rural area. And so I was familiar with that market. I didn't have to learn, this large, metropolitan area. I had some connections and things like that were there to kind of, which is what you would do when you learn a new market, is to build all that. So taking that was a kind of a comfort level for me, I guess, to do some of the long distance stuff. But in the military, if you're going to acquire any number, or unless you somehow, just stay in the same place for 20 years, you don't have a lot of options. You're going to have to do long distance at some point in time. So even before, moving to the UK, it's always really been long distance for me, because all those properties were in Missouri. And that time I lived in Hawaii, California, and Colorado.
Awesome. So Hawaii, Colorado, California, from the Show Me State, and then you get to the UK and you're purchasing in a different location. And I'm sure you'll tell us a little bit more about that later. And I guess one of the things to also recognize and help the Going Long family is to really recognize that there are a number of different reasons that you can choose to be a long distance investor, or it may be life circumstances that also help you to become a long distance real estate investor. And then after that, it's a matter, or a long distance investor in general. And then afterwards, it's about how do you actually tweak your strategy to get the benefit that you are looking for, so that you can impact the lives that you want to be able to impact. So one of the other things that I did want to ask you, because I know you have kind of this, you have 3 pillars that are really the focus and the foundation of everything that you do. And those are financial freedom, family, as well as giving back. Can you maybe unpack those 3 and help the Going Long family understand why these are the 3 pillars that you really focus your time, energy, and effort on every single day?
Yeah. So I think that, first of all, I'll start with family, right? And I think that, that a lot of us say that's, number one priority, or it's the top of the priority list, and I think we have to, when we look at our calendars and things, it doesn't always reflect that. And so for me, it's a reminder to go back, and to make sure it's a priority. And why am I doing all of these other things? Why am I, getting up early in the morning or staying up late at night to acquire real estate, or to, this is legacy that I'm building. It's all about the family, right? And so, and as we talked about, kind of my passion of impact and building a legacy, the legacy doesn't have to be within your own family. It can be other places, but for me, I want my children to carry on some of that legacy amongst others. So it starts with the family. The financial freedom, part is really, I think what most of us want is options, right? A lot of times we say we want financial freedom or time freedom and things like that. And I think they're all kind of intertwined a bit, but what we really want is options. So when I transition out of the military, I want the option. Well, number one, I want the option to continue to stay in the military, or I want the option to, I'm ready to transition out, and I can, because I have this, financial background to be able to do that and not be concerned about, walking away from the military paycheck. I want the option to, work on whether I want to work on real estate, or if I want to take the kids on an international vacation, or I want to volunteer this Saturday. I want the choice to spend my time how I want to do it. And financial freedom is the avenue to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the giving back. I've talked about kind of my passion for that. I think that I think that, just the nature of the family that I grew up in has always been kind of that helping other people. My parents were very good role models and have done a lot for others. And I think I just learned that from a young age, and it's part of who I am. And I've always enjoyed helping. If it's something as simple as, hopping on a phone call to help someone understand, like, how is it that I invest long distance, or, whatever it is, the simplest of things. Or, I've spent hours and hours and hours volunteering at, equestrian therapeutic places. I grew up around horses. I thought I started that to be around horses, and it ended up that I enjoyed being with the people that we were helping, things like that, And so for me, those are kind of the financial freedom is the avenue that I get to spend the time with my family, to build memories with my family, to develop and be present with, my wife and my children. And the giving back, there's so many avenues you can do that, whether, you're giving, financially giving back, whether you're giving back your time, helping develop other people. And those are the way that I want to leave my legacy. That's how I want to be remembered. And so for me, those are the pillars.
Fantastic. So being able to have those three pillars and being able to, clearly see from starting with the family, also being able to have that financial freedom and giving back. And I love the way that you talk about options, right? Because it doesn't do you any good to have trillions of dollars in the bank if you're not actually able to spend the time with the people that you love when you want to do that. And that can be family, that can be friends, that can be business associates, that can be whoever. But being able to have those options and the currency, as I like to call it, the currency is what provides the options to do and spend your time with the people with whom you want to spend them when you want to spend it. So I appreciate you taking a couple seconds just to help us unpack those three pillars and help us get more insight into the way that your mind thinks and the actions that follow. So one of the things that you talked about after you had your buy and hold portfolio, I'm going to maybe pivot a little bit more into the real estate, because I know this is one of the things that you're also focused on. And you talked about being able to invest with others in I think you said 278 units. So I don't know if that was one particular or that was multiple.
Three separate syndications.
Okay. So okay, perfect. So three separate syndications, which means that you went through a process 3 different times. And at the end of that process, you opted to make a financial investment, right?
That's correct.
When you're doing this, was this always with the same 3 people or the same 3 groups, or were they different groups?
3 separate groups.
Okay. So 3 separate groups. Fantastic. So for a lot of people that have never had the opportunity to be a limited partner, an LP, and invest their capital with someone else, could you maybe explain kind of what that process was like? And also what benefit have you received as being a limited partner?
Sure. So, I think one of the most important things is, number one, as a limited partner, like as you mentioned, so many people don't even know these options exist, right? And so they think, super, super wealthy people in all these apartment buildings or things like that. And a lot of times it's people coming together, bringing capital and stuff together to do it. So ordinary individuals can invest in these things. And for me, I didn't, all those years in real estate, and like I said, I didn't spend a ton of time reading books, podcasts, all that kind of stuff in the early, the decade or whatever. So I wasn't exposed to that. Like all I knew really was, for the most part, single family buy and hold and some things like that. And so it wasn't really until I joined the mastermind. And at the time I had some capital that from selling a house in Colorado. And I was looking, initially I was thinking I was going to be a little bit passive after coming to the UK. I thought we were going to do a lot of traveling, stuff like that. And so I was looking for some passive opportunities. Of course, circumstances have changed that a little bit, and that's, I've shifted back. But initially it was when I joined the mastermind, as I mentioned, that I started getting exposed to these other strategies and learned about being a limited partner in a syndication or the private lending and things of that nature. And so I mentioned I've invested in 3 different ones as a limited partner. And so I think one of the most important things when you're investing passively is to get to know and to, we say know, like, and trust, but to get to know, like, and trust the people that you invest with, right? Because you may give up some of the control of your asset or the decision-making in that investment, but the control that you do have is who you invest with, right? And so, you can look at the deal that they present, all of that kind of stuff, but you do control who you invest with. And so when you get to know that person, whether, people get to know you, Billy, they through your podcast and hearing you, and then they reach out and connect with you, and you guys have some conversations. I've done the same thing. And it turned out that the 3 individuals or teams that I invested with, I met through the mastermind. And so I met them in those environments. I, met up with them on a fairly regular basis. I had access to them and things like that. And not everybody that is going to want to invest passively is going to want to join a mastermind, right? Maybe they're investing passively because they want to focus somewhere else. So there's different avenues and mechanisms and ways to meet and get to know these people that are operating the deals. But that's the important thing. And that's how I met the people I invested with. And so it was very new to me. I probably, for someone that had been in real estate for that long, probably asked them what they considered, maybe dumb questions or whatever, and, simple things like I was learning just a couple of years ago, what's an accredited investor? What's a sophisticated investor? Things like that. It wasn't that long ago that I was asking those questions. And, fortunately, it was an active duty and veteran mastermind. So there's always a baseline level of trust there. And they kind of like walked me through the process. And, for me, those are the kind of people I want to invest with. If it's just people that like, do you want to invest or not? Probably not the way that I'm going to go personally. So I want, people that will, help me, to educate me, to, let me understand what I'm getting from it. And as you mentioned, like, what is the value? For me, initially, like I said, I was planning to travel quite a bit while we were over in the UK. So I was thinking like, hey, I'll invest this stuff passively so I don't have to spend as much time at this point in my life focusing on the active investing aspect. And so, there's a number of different ways, depending on the deal and stuff, you start getting cash distributions. Every year you're getting some tax benefit that comes through your K1, through the depreciation. And, over time, a lot of these are, 3, 5, 7 year business plans. Most of the ones I'm invested in have some amount of value add, some more than others, and so that impacts, the risk and the returns. But over time, your equity in that property, and when they go to sell it or refinance or, those kind of options in a few years, I'll get that return of my capital and return on my capital back. And then, if you want to stay in the passive role, hopefully you got enough to turn around and, maybe invest in 2 syndications, a larger amount in one, or, split it up or something. So there's a few things right there as far as being a passive investor in these.
So it's fantastic in helping us to understand. And this is once again from your perspective. And I love the way that you really talked about how it depends on your individual strategy. So you talked about being able to travel and wanting to be able to spend more of your time on traveling, right? The world's changed a little bit and things like that. But the reality is, as long as you have a clear strategy and a clear goal in mind, then that passive investing, what it does ultimately, and hopefully you can confirm this, is being able to get to know, like, and trust people, understanding their business models, their business philosophies. As long as it is in line with you as an investor, then you can deposit your trust, meaning your currency, with them, allows you to free up your time so that you can do things that you want to do with the people that you love. And as a result of doing that, then you've also built a business relationship for people that are going to be able to, in the span of, as you mentioned before, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, depending on what it is, are continuously returning that currency and returning your equity over time. So you actually ultimately get free time to do the things that you want while your capital is being managed elsewhere. Would that be accurate?
100%, and I think, some people may want more cash flow now. Some people just want to push it away and get stuff later. And that's where you talk about the alignment of interest and it's important to talk with, the investors, what are your goals, because different things are structured in different ways, and, might be heavy on one and not on the other, or vice versa. And yeah, it's just I think it's a amazingly incredible opportunity for people that may not even be that interested in real estate. Some of us are, but it's an incredible opportunity for some people that they're just not interested in real estate. They want to go travel. They love their W-2. They love to, do whatever else it is. They just don't want to focus on that. So you spend a little bit of time getting to know the person that's investing, getting to understand their strategies and what the benefit of the deal is and things like that. And once you have covered, crossed that bridge of trusting them, then I'll give you an example real quick, Billy, is
sure.
one of the properties that I invested in, literally a week or two after we closed, one of the buildings burnt down. And, they sent out a message and say, hey, this is what happened last night and everything's good. We have the insurance there, X, Y, and Z. And I didn't even think about it that much. I was like, oh, and that is terrible that it's happened. And you are concerned about the residents and stuff. But I trusted that the people that I invested with were going to take care of it, right? They were going to take care of the residents that had been in that building. They were going to take care of the things that had to be done for our investment. I didn't spend that much time that concerned. And that's a level of trust that you need to have to, with the people that you invest, that that they're going to do the right thing, that it's going to be taken care of.
Yeah, being able to have that level of trust and knowing that they're going to do what needs to be done is something that, as you mentioned, you have to know, like, and then ultimately trust them to make those decisions, and that things have to be aligned, you as an investor with the investment group. So you mentioned 3 different investments. And so just curiosity, because we love location here. So you did all 3 of these while you've been living in the UK, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Where are the actual physical location of these properties?
Yeah. So one is in Kansas City, Colorado. One is in Mobile, Alabama, and one is Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's pretty long distance.
It is. I know that, Tulsa is, a little over 4,000 miles ish. So if you go the other 2, Colorado's probably a little, I don't know the trajectory of the earth there, but it's.
Yeah, that's fine. But they're long distance. So none of them are in the UK where you live, which helps us to understand. The other thing that I know that you are also, you've gone from limited partner, you've done some private lending, and you've also decided that you wanted to go to the general partnership role, meaning taking on more responsibility. Talk to us about that transition. What was your inspiration to move to a more active role? And yeah, I guess just kind of what was the inspiration to move to a more active role? And I guess what are you looking to also achieve by doing that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, part of the reason I was investing pretty quickly in a few deals as a limited partner was my intent to focus on traveling in my spare time. I'm still got a W-2 with the military, so I have that, and then wanting to travel. And, after COVID happened and we were all kind of home for a while, I was kind of taking an assessment, and I was like, I'm, going to make my transition in, at the time it was under 2 years. Now we're probably at, 12 to 18 months time frame. And I was like, if I want to make that transition, to do so comfortably and things like that, I could take a more active role to, increase, the deals that I could be involved in, and, the comfort level for my family to give us additional options and things of that nature. So that was kind of the initial thought process. And then on the back end of that was, it goes back to the impact part, right? And so real estate for me is what I want to spend my time doing after I transition from the military. And being an active investor gave me the opportunity to have an impact and scale that impact in maybe more ways. You certainly can as a limited partner and stuff too, that allows you a lot of options, allows you to impact in other ways. But for me, as I mentioned earlier, it allows me to impact through the residents, through the communities. It's a tangible thing for me to show my children how to invest in real estate and do this kind of stuff. And then like the profits that we give back to, for causes and things that we're passionate about. And so that's kind of the reason I transitioned back over to wanting to be a general partner. And, I am planning to do that for a period of time. Like that's going to be the way that I, continue to provide options for my family and have an impact. And at some point in time, again, I have those options. And if I like, hey, I'm tired, I want to focus on something else, I want to go travel for a long time and not think about this, then, I can shift back over and put my money back into some other people's deals as a limited partner and go passive again.
Perfect. And that helps. And so as you're looking into the general partnership, once again, I want to go back to the location. Kind of where types of locations are you looking to have future opportunities or current opportunities?
Right. Yeah. So the one I happened to partner up with the last deal that I invested in Tulsa. I happened to partner up with them again, partners here from the UK that you're familiar with. And, they were already focused kind of in the Tulsa area. And so the one that we're getting ready to close on right now is in the general Tulsa region. And I'd already started also looking at properties and stuff in Kansas City. I have some, more on the single family triplex type of properties in Kansas City area. That's likely where we're going to head back, when we transition back to the States. I like the market there. It's near Tulsa. It's similar, that Midwest-ish, some of the tech stuff coming in. And so right now, Kansas City and Tulsa are the two markets that I'm mainly focused on.
All right. Fantastic. Well, that's great because you follow that location, be able to continue to build out your teams, and then the opportunities, no matter what they are, they come in. And as long as there's alignment, as you talked about before, it's something that's important to help everyone move forward towards goals. So here's the thing, Marcus, before we get into the Going Long Final Three, because we're just around the corner from the Going Long Final Three, I do want to have you share with us just one last thing, which is the importance of community. Like you've mentioned this a couple of times, and I want to understand the role that community is having for you right now, or building community to be able to, once again, you've mentioned words like intentionality or being intentional and impact. But what's the role of community as well in terms of being able to move forward?
Yeah, for me, it's, as an entrepreneur and stuff, it can be a very lonely place sometimes. A lot of times, we think that like no one else thinks the way we think, or, things like that. And, you go to work and you might talk about stuff and people kind of look like you're crazy, right? And stuff. And so you just kind of like keep it to yourself. You're kind of, working on these things behind closed doors and stuff. And so number one, I think it's important to see like the people that are out there, the other people that are doing it, the number of people that, we've seen on social media or Bigger Pockets or things like that, mention investing overseas, like how could it be done type of thing. And I just jump in there and be like, hey, I'm doing it, give me a call and we'll talk about that and stuff. And so I think number one, it's important to get in those communities. And then like, as I mentioned, like I probably wouldn't, eventually I would have figured out the strategies and stuff, but the communities that I've joined, I'm in a couple of different masterminds and stuff. It's not just the knowledge and the expertise and, other people like challenging you and, and cheering you on and things of that nature. But they're also, there's other life aspects. Some of them are making me, better men, better father, better husband, focus on my health and things like that. So it's not just real estate necessarily. So it's, the value for me is just enormous. And, I just encourage everyone to find your community. Maybe it's not real estate. Maybe there's something else you're passionate or focused about, whatever that is, find your people, find your tribe.
Yeah. Love that. Find your people, find your tribe. It's definitely, I'm a big believer in that as well. And so here's the thing, Marcus, like I want to just keep talking to you forever. And I'm fortunate because I can talk to you all the time, but people are running on the treadmill, or they're cooking dinner, or they're doing whatever they're doing. And well, they kind of need us to get to the Going Long Final Three. But the thing is, I never ask anybody, and I'm not going to start today. I don't never ask anybody the Going Long Final Three without asking if you're ready for me to ask you the Going Long Final Three. So are you ready?
Well, let's do it.
I knew you would be ready to do it. So here we go. First question, and normally we're talking about people that are somewhere on a different side of the pond, but since you and I are on this side of the pond and you love traveling and things like that, help us understand, what is your favorite European city that you've either already visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
So I wish I was giving you an example based on all my traveling experience from the last 18 months, but since that's not the case, and I'm gonna tweak the answer probably a bit, maybe not a city, but a region. I really want to get to Normandy in France. It's been one of the things I knew I had to do when I come over. We haven't been, and it's actually not that far. I just got to get across the channel here in the next year. But for obvious reasons, I think my military service and stuff, it's important for me to go there and to appreciate the sacrifice of those that went before us.
All right, so get up to the Normandy region. It's fantastic. It's beautiful, and also you'll have a chance to reflect on a number of the things that happened in that area. So appreciate you sharing that. And you know what the thing is you're a very successful person, Marcus, and you continue to have focus and be more intentional in the things you do. So that means you're going to be much more successful. And so getting into question number 2, like one of the things that I've noticed about successful people is that successful people are super successful because along their trajectory, they've only made one mistake. And the fact that they've only made one mistake, why do I always get that wrong? I get that wrong every single time. Like it's like 100 and some odd episodes and I still get it wrong. I think I get nervous. Anyway, okay, or maybe not. So here's the thing. As you know, everybody makes mistakes, man. Everybody has learning opportunities. Some people want to call that, put the positive spin on it. But what I really do and have noticed that really successful people do differently is, in spite of making probably a lot more mistakes than most people, they take a moment to just reflect on what happened and they take away a lesson that they can apply to the future. And so I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, like not necessarily a mistake that you made or the learning opportunity, but what was the lesson that you know is going to help someone that's listening or watching us today?
Yeah. So I think we probably just hit on it, a minute ago is, and it's hard to quantify this as a mistake necessarily, but I think one of the biggest learning points for me was not, that I didn't join a mastermind or a group or a tribe or something earlier in my journey. We've talked about that a couple times, in the past hour, and you can see the immense growth. And I think you would see that outside of real estate. I gave numbers as an example and things, but I also talked about, me as a husband and a father. And, I hope if you asked my wife or my children, like they would have seen a difference in the past couple of years and stuff as well. And so whatever it is, whether it's real estate or something else, I think reach out and find where that is and surround yourself with those people, because it's, the things I'm doing now, I could have done 10, 12, 15 years ago had I done that. So that's kind of a big learning lesson for myself.
Okay. All right. Power of community, man, and being a part of it and being active as well, not just being there listening. I'm adding that last part, but you've demonstrated that.
It's 100% true. Those types of things, the more you put into them, the more you reach out, connect with others, that you offer your help, you will get immensely more out of it.
Yeah. Definitely agree. And so listen, Marcus, it brings us to the third of the Going Long final three and the last of the 5 questions that I ask every single person. And it's really to help us feed our brains. And what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family, Marcus?
I always have a hard time with this question because I think we all need different things at different times. And, one book may have a big impact at one time and not at another. So it's a tough question, but for today, I'm going to say The Go-Giver, Bob Burg and John David Mann. And, if you haven't read it, go out and grab it. It's a very short, easy read. And I think it's a powerful message, regardless of what you are doing in life, whether business, family, other things. It's a powerful message. And I think it's one of those that probably needs to be revisited on a regular basis.
Yeah. it's those 5 lessons that you can learn from Mr. Berg and on The Go-Giver. And it's one of those books. I appreciate you sharing that because it's definitely made a positive impact on me. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Marcus, like the thing is, I'm just kind of like thinking about from the very beginning of the conversation, I'm thinking about, talking about your pride in being a husband and a father and having 17-year real estate experience, right? And on top of the 20 years that you have given service as a naval officer. And then back in 2004, when things started happening in your life and you did house hacking, you probably weren't even calling it back at that point in time. And really the focus was just, I just want to buy this and keep it and have some equity build up over time. And you did some things with your brothers and sisters and you were able to, or with your family members, probably the better way to say it, with your family members. And you were just kind of going along and at least you were doing something, investing in real assets, but there was no real intentionality about it. And then as you mentioned to us, in less than 2 years, with you being focused and with you being very intentional about the way that you were going about doing things, you've started to realize the impact that you can make on others. You have this real passion for being able to help educate young people as well as adults. You have a focus on being able to spend more time, quality time with your family, also being able to have financial freedom and being able to give back. And you've talked about, as you made the transition, not from just a passive investor because you found that world, you've done some private lending, which we didn't even really get into that a lot. And you're also now moving and expanding your experience into general partnership. And you're doing all of this from the UK back in the United States, which I love. And every single person that is here listening and watching us in the Going Long family absolutely loves. And I know that so many people are asking themselves right now, Marcus, like, oh my gosh, like he's great. He's telling us all this stuff, but how do we get in touch with Marcus? So help us understand, what's the best way to get in touch with you, your team, and find out more about how we can be involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Billy. I really appreciate it. The best way really is to go to my website, alonglegacy.com. So on there, regardless of how you like to communicate, there's an opportunity to send me an email. You can schedule a phone call, a Zoom call. If you like social media, all my social media links are on there. So it's a kind of a one-stop shop to go there. There's a free resource on there, 30 actions to launch your legacy. It talks about some of the daily habits and other things, financial related, real estate related, and stuff that, I've kind of incorporated into my life, particularly over the last 2 years, to launch my own legacy. So I'd love to share that with your listeners as well.
All right. Fantastic. Longlegacy.com. You can go there, check out things. We're also going to include that in the show notes. So if you're running on the treadmill, don't worry. It's going to be there. Just go and click and we'll make it really easy for you to connect with Marcus. Marcus, I know I'm going to get the chance to talk to you more frequently, man, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family today, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Billy. It was amazing to be here with you.
All right. Fantastic. And Marcus, if you give me just a couple seconds, I just want to say a couple last words to the Going Long family. And listen, family, Marcus, he added so much value today. He gave you real life strategy, tactical things that you can be doing as a long distance investor. And you know what? Today's conversation, that you know 2 or 3 people that need to hear what Marcus was talking about today. So why don't you just take a second, take your phone out of your pocket and share today's episode with 2 or 3 other people. Be the person that makes a positive impact on someone else's life because you know that they need it. At the same time, if you can take a second, since you have your phone out already, and leave us an honest review. Like an honest review as well as a rating. Help us understand what are the things that you really liked about today's conversation. What are the things you like about the format of the podcast? What things would you like to change? Because I go through every single one of them and we're constantly adapting and making this podcast and video cast even more relevant for you. So with that being said, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. And until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.